There aren't many places where you can get a look at a 2,500-year-old monster, but there's one up here, and we're going to try and get a look at it today.
I wanted to break away to see the world.
I longed for excitement, the romance of travel.
So we built a boat.
And now we travel the oceans. Join us as we voyage to distant shores.
It's not often this quiet out here, but to be honest, we're a little nervous about the next passage. We're heading up here towards the Strait of Messina, a very narrow place. It goes down from 100 miles wide back here, down to just 1 mile wide in the narrowest spot. One of the earliest books ever written in Western literature is the Odyssey. When Odysseus sailed through here, he was warned about two monsters, Scylla and Charybdis. And Charybdis was the most fearsome of the monsters, and that is still here in the straits. It's a whirlpool. They're big enough that they could really give a yacht our size some real trouble. The problem is that the waters that flow back and forth through here, there's different salinity on each side of the strait, and there's currents that go back and forth. So when the currents are coming through here, they can form these strong eddies and they can turn boats around. From hundreds of years ago, it's been reported that ships have come through here and been spun right around with the current.
Our destination on this voyage is the Lipari Islands just north of the strait. We've only just got started when we have our first encounter with creatures from the deep. Thank goodness they're friendly ones.
They come so close to the hull, they seem to really like to play in the bow wave.
Well, we are not going as fast as I had hoped. We've had a strong current flowing through the strait against us for the last couple hours. So we're getting behind, and we don't have a lot of daylight left. I'm afraid we might be getting into the area where the worst whirlpools are, maybe around sunset or even after dark. The whirlpools are formed as the tides drive water through the narrowest areas of the strait. When the new or full moon causes extra high tides, the currents and whirlpools are much larger. Similarly, if the wind flows with the tide, speeding it up, the whirlpools can be increased. But today, the calm water just gives us a few hints of what it could be like.
Well, it's funny because on the surface there's just like unusual riplets. There doesn't seem to be a source for where the waves are coming from. And I can feel it in the wheel. It's like strange things tugging down there at the keel and the rudder.
We arrive at Messina at the entrance to the strait, just as the daylight is fading, and we do have to dodge sea monsters after all. Not whirlpools as we feared thanks to the calm weather, but the numerous ferries that go in and out of this harbor.
Not that we got to use the sail much today, but looks like we just made it in before dark. We didn't see the whirlpool at its full height with the time of the tide we've come in. Oh, this is more exciting than anything we've seen today, just the wakes of the ferries coming in and out of Messina. Well, there's bound to be some excitement in the strait.
Not only are there lots of car ferries leaving Messina, but this ferry is carrying a train. The whole train and its passengers is loaded onto the ferry here on the island of Sicily and is sailed across the strait where it connects to a track on the other side.
And even though this isn't the most beautiful town and there's lots of noise and traffic, it's a great feeling to be tied in a secure harbor, and tomorrow we'll continue on right through the strait to the Lipari Islands.
The morning dawns rather grey and rainy, but the wind forecast looks good for the day's sail. Our only navigational challenge is getting through the narrowest part of the strait.
This is very weird. I think we're going to make it out of this. We're just at the entrance to the Strait of Messina now, so we've come all the way through the worst part. But right here, right at the very mouth, it is just driving, pulling the boat around. The water's boiling and bubbling. It is really weird waves. There's not a lot of wind, so we're really lucky to get it on such a calm day, but you can see it swirling around, whirls and swirls. I think the Italian term for that is bastardi. I wonder what that means.
We've seen a few of these boats for catching swordfish. There's 3 men at the top doing a lookout, and one of them is actually steering the boat from the top of that pole. When they spot a fish, the man will go out on that very long pole off the bow of the boat and harpoon the fish right from there. Never seen anything like that before.
But the fish don't seem to be biting today, and the crew aboard their boat seem as down about the weather as we are. When we finally exit the strait and leave the confused seas behind us, we bear northwest for the 30-mile leg to our destination, Vulcano, our first stop in the Lipari Islands. The Lipari Islands, named for the largest island in the group, is an archipelago of 7 volcanic islands lying north of Sicily and west of the Italian mainland. They're also called the Aeolian Islands after the god Aeolus, the god with the power to change the winds. This should have been a hint of the day to come.
I'm just checking our GPS, our global positioning system, which shows us on the chart our approach to the island of Volcano, our first landfall here. We just have 2.5 miles to go to the waypoint new position, and we're traveling at about 5.5 knots, so we're doing pretty good speed considering we're in a headwind. Not so comfortable though. When we left Messina this morning, the forecast was for a southeast wind, which would have been a pretty nice sail. But as it turned out, the winds were from the northwest, which meant they were right on the nose. And that's pretty uncomfortable. We weren't able to sail, so we were motor sailing. And we're able to get here, which we're very glad because it's a beautiful place, as you can see.
Forecast southeast and we get northwest, so they were right except for the direction being 180 degrees opposite.
But made it a little uncomfortable to get here, and we're now looking forward to dropping the anchor in the harbor at Volcano and getting a bit of rest. Isn't this just magnificent? We've never seen just such natural beauty in our travels through the Mediterranean. Well, needless to say, there's a bit of a sulfur smell in the air since we're parked right beside this volcanic crater. A little bit like rotten eggs.
When we go ashore to investigate, we discover another source of the smell in the air, a huge pool of sulfur-smelling mud right near the anchorage. The locals claim that relaxing in this warm, muddy mess is good for you. Cheryl opts out, but I decide to give it a try.
Well, we're at another mud bath. This one is a little different because you're supposed to be going in and covering yourself all with the mud, and it's actually warm, and so is the water in the sea nearby. So this whole area is being heated up. It's also a bit unusual in that you're not supposed to go in if you're young, because it's radioactive. Only a little radioactive, so you can stay in a little while. Anyway, let's see what this is like. I gotta find a smooth bit where I can sit down here.
I don't know how they convince everybody this is good for them. It smells disgusting in here. It just smells like sulfur and rotten eggs. It feels gross, but it's supposed to be good for me. So I decide to find out why the others think it's good for them, which proves to be difficult since no one speaks much English.
This is good for you?
C'est bon pour moi.
Or what? A little?
No, it's not good for me parce que diabète.
Ah, it's no good for you if you're diabetic. God, you can't even sit on this, it's too hot.
Ah oui, elle est chargée.
There's little tiny little jets of really hot air and water coming up out of the sand if you don't pick the spot to sit on.
Finally, a guy starts showing me how this place works.
Have you known the sea?
C'est parce qu'il y a Volcano qui se
Weird. Hot piece.
C'était pas sale du tout, toi.
Wow.
Non, c'est nettoyé.
There's- You can put your legs back underneath.
Mais pas sur les cheveux.
Oh, bizarre. So now apparently we go into the sea. You have to watch where you stand in there. It can be too hot to even walk on. And you're supposed to rinse the mud off first in the pool so that the mud all stays there for the next person. So you get used mud. Well, you've got to really watch where you step. The rocks are nice and round, so you can walk around no problem, except that coming out from some of them, you can see the bubbles, and they are so hot, it's like stepping on a kettle, you get burned. The overall thing, though, if you float on the surface, it's just a nice temperature, like a bath. Then you get a bit of the cold water, and it's still May, and it is really cold. Come on, let's take a look. Well, this is nice and warm. This is just perfect bath temperature, because someone's cordoned off a little bit of it to make like a bath.
Les odeurs, odeurs.
The odor is terrible.
Good aussi.
No, the odor is good.
Je sais pas comment.
For the ears?
Pour les oreilles aussi. Problème, oreilles.
Mais c'est surtout pour la peau.
Et la peau.
And
la
good
peau.
for the whole skin. So it's good for the skin, and the odor is supposed to be good for your ears. But the odor for your nose is...
Les nez.
We found a tour guide helping us out here, but he doesn't speak English, just Italian or French. So I don't even know where we're going now. Oh, it's all green. C'est vert. Oh, it's beautiful. Ooh, it's hot. Here we go. Wow, a sauna with the best view ever. Wow, well this is it, your perfect health spa experience. Un altro? This one's just big enough for 2 people. The gorgeous view of the boats at anchor. I think you could be in here even in the cold of winter and it's still a warm little house. And what a view, looking right out over the anchorage and the volcanoes. Are you interested in the cruising lifestyle? Are you planning to sail away on a cruising adventure? Or researching cruising areas and destinations? Distant Shores is a television series about the cruising life, with lots of tips for sailors planning to sail away. This is Oswego, New York. We are entering the Erie Canal system, and this will take us all the way from Lake Ontario to the Hudson River, which gets us to New York City. Plus destination information to help you make your cruising plans. Yeah, I can stand on the bottom. We've been filming Distant Shores for nearly 15 years, and know the fun and challenges of the cruising life. We've made Distant Shores with you in mind. We include plenty of cruising tips in this travel series, as well as lifestyle segments and hints for sailors heading to exotic destinations. Encouragement for you and your crew to get out cruising. Destinations include the Intracoastal Waterway, the Bahamas, Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Scandinavia, transatlantic passage making, the French canals, and more.
The top of the crater on Volcano stands at 386 meters above the sea, and a hike to the top seems in order, except for one thing.
Well, I'm a bit worried about this sign. Danger, do not go near smoke holes, extreme danger of toxic gas, yet it's highly recommended to climb the crater at Volcano. See what happens.
I like the way here it's toxic gas, but down in the mud baths yesterday, it was good for my sinuses.
In the anchorage, there's this real rotten egg smell from the sulfur gas, but on the side of the crater, all we can smell are these beautiful wildflowers.
The wildflowers are hardy bushes of gorse growing in the sandy black volcanic soil on the lower slopes. It's a little tricky to walk on. Higher up, the bushes disappear and the ground becomes a tough volcanic crust from the volcano's previous erupting stage. The last volcanic activity occurred between 1886 and 1890, and the volcano is now considered dormant and in its final smoking phase. The only emissions to be expected are of sulfur vapor.
Before the 18th century, there were enough regular volcanic eruptions to discourage habitation of Vulcano, but even after that, when things seemed to have settled down, there were several necessary evacuations. A Scot named Stevenson bought the island in the 19th century to exploit the sulfur and alum reserves here, but his operation was swallowed up by the next major eruption.
Spring and fall is a really good time to hike here because it's not too hot. It's only about 22 degrees today, and the winds are light, so it's just the perfect time. In summer, it's very hot and very crowded as well.
And even in the spring and fall, you are completely exposed to the sun, so it's a good idea to make the climb early or late in the day when it's cooler. And we're glad we're wearing our hats and sunblock, and we've got a liter of water each.
Wow, you can see these crystals. They're just this kind of yellow. I guess it's almost pure sulfur. It sure smells like sulfur. These are so hot. Just this little, almost furry. All the rocks are covered in this yellow fur.
Well, it was a good hike, but the air's pretty bad.
You can see the fissure here. This is like a recent crack, and you can even see and hear this thing. It is just, you can hear kind of a roar out of it. It's like the air roaring up from this brand new fissure. Looks like it didn't happen that long ago. Whenever I'm here in Europe and we get to see something like this, I think if this was in North America, I have a feeling we would have fenced the whole thing off and not be allowed to go here. But it's kind of nice. We make our own decision. Well, that was a great hike. Takes about an hour to get up. I think it'll take a little less to get down. It is a wonderful way to get up and see this whole archipelago laid out in front of us. The only minor problem is this island stinks. The sulfur smell is pretty strong all around here.
The top of the crater isn't the only place the sulfur gas is spewing from the volcano. We've been told there are places it bubbles up underwater. So we take the dinghy to the foot of the cliffs to see what marine life is attracted by the warm volcanic vents below the sea. This mountain goat, one of the many roaming the island, seems to be taking a look too.
And wouldn't you know, the first fish I see is a goatfish. See the resemblance? The volcano attracts a myriad of marine life since it warms the water. You can see the heat waves in the water, and when I take off my gloves to touch the stones, they're hot. Oh, that was great. I think I've never seen anything like that. The bottom was hot to the touch, hotter than real good bath water actually. And that rock that I picked up, it was really too hot to hold for more than a couple seconds. It's incredible considering the water is like 20 degrees. I mean, that's cooled water. I mean, you need the wetsuit. But right there in that little patch, it's really hot. It was definitely exciting. This is one volcanic island.
When traveling anywhere near or around the water, it adds so much to be able to get below the waves and explore the marine life. It doesn't take a lot of equipment. Basically, all you need is a well-fitting mask and snorkel and a pair of fins. Now, I've added a few more things. I like to wear a wetsuit. Although the water's warm, it protects me from sunburn, and if I'm getting down close amongst the coral, it can protect me from coral burns or jellyfish stings. Snorkeling is a really great sport, and you can add as much equipment as you want. It's also very handy on the boat because it means we can do underwater repairs as well as explore the beauties beneath the sea.
Well, this has been a great place for us, but it isn't really the best anchorage. The harbors around here are a bit tough for sailing in a small boat. Actually, it'd probably be better to come here and stay in the hotels. You can get out here by ferry boats, and then you're not worried about all the problems we have. The main one is if we've got the anchorage like this with an open horizon behind us, we've got the wind could come straight in, and that's what the forecast is for this afternoon. So I'm just checking around and find us a spot on the other side of the island. We'll move over there for about a day, and then we can come back if we want to. Wind coming straight in there. So we're going to sail from here around into this anchorage.
With our size of boat, it's been a little rolly in the anchorage, but if you like the idea of sailing in cruise ship style, here's a couple of options behind me, much more comfortable.
We can beat these guys. We can beat them.
I think we need a bigger boat. Ours doesn't have room for a running track or a swimming pool like they do.
Wow, this has just been a great visit. Volcano, I just had no idea that there was some place that was still so relatively untouched left in the Mediterranean. Definitely worth a visit, especially if you're interested in a bit of walking, some hiking, and learning about volcanoes. Are you interested in the cruising lifestyle? Are you planning to sail away on a cruising adventure? Or researching cruising areas and destinations? Distant Shores is a television series about the cruising life, with lots of tips for sailors planning to sail away.
This is Oswego, New York. We are entering the Erie Canal system, and this will take us all the way from Lake Ontario to the Hudson River, which gets us to New York City.
Plus destination information to help you make your cruising plans.
Yeah, I can stand on the bottom.
We've been filming Distant Shores for nearly 15 years and know the fun and challenges of the cruising life. We've made Distant Shores with you in mind. We include plenty of cruising tips in this travel series, as well as lifestyle segments and hints for sailors heading to exotic destinations. Encouragement for you and your crew to get out cruising. Destinations include the Intracoastal Waterway, the Bahamas, Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Scandinavia, transatlantic passage making, the French canals, and more.